It's evaded your notice, but I am the invasive species. Maybe you've seen my editing in Game Apologist, Phantom Strider, or V-Infuso videos. Maybe you've seen my VTuber models start cropping up. Maybe you've seen the remade intro animation for Knuckles Channel 3 and Knuckles. Making my own YouTube videos is only really one part of what I do. I am very lucky to have so many great content creators putting their faith in me to produce assets for them. And in the spirit of the holidays, and with my recent videos about holiday advertising, I think it would be incredibly apt that I show you my own holiday commercial that I made this year. Which feels like a bit of a rite of passage, to be honest, given that in 2013 for college, one of the very first things I made was an unofficial Mountain Dew commercial. Hey, it was 2013 and I had an Xbox, it made sense. Getting to make an official ad for something 12 years later is pretty cool. This ad was for the DVD gift set release of the collectible world of Caddicarus.
Whoa.
Caddy has been one of my clients for a few years now. We've worked together on a really fun countdown campaign for the Spons plush 2 years ago, which involved plushy Spons getting slowly killed by his real-life counterpart. There were the ads for the Caddy transforming plush pajama thing, and a few announcement posts and other such things. Also, big thumbs up to Caddy. He's a ton of fun to work with. He's clear enough with what he wants, but also gives me space to get creative too, and I think it's just a good match because I really enjoy that absurd, nonsensical, what even is the joke and why am I laughing style of humor. Getting to play within that kind of framework is just a hell of a fun way to freelance. Now, of course, over the recent years, my creative process has evolved. Previously, my work for Caddy would consist of image edits using stock photos, images that I'm provided with, etc. But since about mid-2024, Blender has become very integrated into my work, and I saw a big opportunity to step things up with my newfound confidence in Blender for this year's big merch push. And the PS1 theming of the collectible world of Caddicarus presented an opportunity to kind of resurrect that signature PlayStation 1 look in Blender. Which I know I'm not the first person to do, and it's probably been done 10 times better by other people. But as someone who's been using Blender for 2 years now, it was really fun to play with an animation style that actually means quite a lot to me. Heck, earlier in the year, I collaborated with Garrulus64 to create custom Super Mario 64 mod commissions. I've also been practicing animation throughout the year. So this ad here is kind of the culmination of what I've been doing in Blender throughout the year, outside of the Sonic the Hedgehog short film that I've been working on, which goes for more of a cel-shaded 2D look. One of the first ads I did for the Collectible World re-release this year was the Ringu-inspired image of PS1 Caddy climbing out of Crash Bandicoot's TV. Once again, keeping recognizable and quintessentially PlayStation iconography with Crash Bandicoot. The first step was creating PS1-style Caddy. Now, I'm not the first person to make a PS1-style Caddy, this is nothing revolutionary, but I didn't have access to those assets, so I knew I needed to make my own. I figured I'd give him a purple hoodie as a reference to the transforming plush. With PS1, obviously there was a major limit on how many polygons a model could have, so designers often had to let the textures do the talking. That's where the real detail is, beyond that basic silhouette. For those textures, I used a screenshot of Caddy's vacant face from the end of his Letterboxd reviews on Instagram. Some of those I've also edited as well. Then found some stock textures of hair and grabbed a stock image of an ear. Then, because of the low poly nature of the model, it was very easy to UV map the textures on there. The textures are also brought down to a resolution between 24 pixels and about 128 pixels, with the resampling set to nearest neighbor to give us those nice sharp pixels, rather than the smoothened look of bilinear. And with Caddy's kicks, it was simply a matter of getting images of the shoes from Google and then just kind of UV mapping them onto his very basic foot geometry. The clothing textures were done in Substance 3D and then crunched down to a nice low resolution as well. Then once Caddy's all rigged, he's ready to go. For Crash, I took his Crash 2 model, paired it with a new rig and shape keys to make animation easier for me. I am a bit of a noob at this, so simple rigs make things a lot easier for me, and the more shape keys on the face, the better. Then I created a 3D living room space with some basic planes and made some simple textures using stock images before crunching them down to low res as well. I figured a log cabin would be a nice space for a festive scene, so it's a log cabin. For lighting, they obviously had very limited options back on the PS1. You could basically have one directional light, and that's about it, so I chose to have that, and then I cranked the shadow resolution way down. For Crash, obviously he's this very Tex Avery-inspired cartoon character, so you want lots of exaggerated poses and choppy movements. For this, I generally animated Crash pose to pose. This means getting the general positions I want the character in down first, and then adding keyframes in between to help him reach those poses in a way that feels natural. I'm a big fan of stepped animation, which we've been seeing a lot in recent CGI animated films, such as the Spider-Verse movies and Puss in Boots 2, and I felt this fit the old-school cartoon-inspired nature of Crash and helped to accentuate his movements and poses. This gives the illusion of animation on 2s, really helping sell that 2D animation philosophy, even if it is applied to a 3D character. So, I rendered out a few shots, and something was bothering me still. This just doesn't look good. Crash just doesn't quite feel right. Rather than feeling like a long-lost PS1 cutscene, it feels like a low-poly animation, which could be fine, but it's not what I'm going for here. I wanted this to feel like something that could have been found deep within an old PS1 demo disc, and then I realized what was missing. The PlayStation 1 had very limited vertex calculation capabilities. What this meant was that the calculation of each little surface on the model was constantly snapping and shifting to the nearest number, while now modern hardware can easily calculate these vertexes precisely in real time, decimal places and all. Back then, you'd get this wobbly snapping look, like the character's skin is crawling. So I emulated this effect using a displacement modifier in Blender applied to all of the geometry. Now this is a bit of a cheat, it just kind of achieves the look rather than actually achieving what it was. And even then it's not fully accurate. If it were, those vertexes would be shifting a bit with the camera movements as well rather than just their own movements. But unfortunately I just couldn't quite figure out how to get that to work. There's probably a toggle somewhere that I'm missing. Ideas for next time. The most important thing is that Crash now looks like his skin is crawling all over him. Once again, leaning into the cartoon influence, expression isn't just limited to characters, but also to backgrounds and scenery. So I wanted the background to change to something dramatic once we enter the Ringu references. So I took a fire overlay, pixelated it, and then used a mix shader to toggle between the two backgrounds. Then I could keyframe this. And that's about it, really. I managed to get this done within a day. Of course, not all of the assets were made for this ad. The room and the PS1 Caddy were made for the static image ad, but the animation really didn't take long and was super fun to do. Rendering was also super quick given the low poly art style, minimal lighting, and simple textures. I think low poly is such a great workspace for new animators. The retro style can forgive a few flaws such as clipping from shifting vertexes or deformations that break. You'd find these kinds of flaws in an old video game cutscene, so these only really add character. But I think this also gets new animators into the routine of optimization. Optimization is kinda a dying art with next-gen games boasting character models with hundreds of thousands of tries and details sculpted into the geometry. But if you can make things look good with lower poly counts, that's a really valuable skill that will contribute to a lightweight workflow, which is why this was such a breeze for me. I work off of a 3-year-old 800-pound laptop. Massive tri-counts and overly detailed meshes are a bit intensive on my system, so it's always a matter of making the most of stylization and really embracing that. It doesn't need to look expensive or high fidelity, it just needs to look cool. Now, this was, of course, made for the purpose of appearing in social media reels, but being the little film graduate that I am, of course, I wanted to make a 16:9 version. I've left placeholder Crash Bandicoot tracks in there as well, so you can kind of consider this a director's cut. Let's take a look. Thanks again to Caddicarus for this awesome opportunity, and of course to the artists who bought us Blender and made it free for everyone. What a time to be alive. Anyone can just make their own little Pixar movie in their rooms now. That's so cool. I got nothing more to say, just go. Now, where would I be without the generosity of my trusty patrons? We're going to start with a shout out for the patrons in the $10 and above tiers. We have Just Another Evil Robot Clone Seeking Revenge, Xander Wolf, Ghostly Phantom, Twilord, KB, Sad Goku, Dare Denny, Kale Bennett. If I had more space, I'd explain that. It's taken me way too long to update this. And Mr. SP, Sirius the Skeptic, and Biotin. And now, on to the patrons in the $5 and above tier. We've got Joseph Tribble, Press Play to Jason, Gideon Wells, Basic Content, Ben Raven, Reese Burns, Manalza, Goat Cannon, Silver, Josh Strider, Grant Allen, Marv Animation, Cho Henshin, RT0, Carlex, SSS06, and Vera Wild. Thank you, good folks, so much for your generosity. The video's now over. Get out.